And hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Judgment Day for Keir Starmer, and whatever decision he goes with and who he sides with is going to anger the opposite. Now, of course, Keir Starmer is going to have to decide whether he stands with Donald Trump or the BBC in this scandal. Now, there is a lot of talk currently online with regard to this. Now, look, of course, our relationship with America feels like it's currently on strings at this moment in time. And if Keir Starmer sides with the BBC over Donald Trump, then I can see it being completely nuked for good. However, if Keir Starmer stands with Donald Trump, it's going to anger all of the liberals on the left-hand side, which is his party essentially, with regard to protecting the BBC. His media arm, his propaganda tool, of course, that is used to push his agenda and psyop the people of the United Kingdom. There's a lot of debate, there's a lot of talk currently going online at this moment in time with regard to it, and we're going to discuss it. We're going to be watching and reacting to footage of it, but please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more. You've seen the state of this country, now wear the message. Wankir, Stuck Farmer, Liber. Shop the full collection by going down into the link in the description or heading over to BritishStan.com. Now, one of the lunatics that keeps on coming out is Ed Davey. Now, Liberal Democrats are the most sort of pointless party ever. I don't even know what they do. But Ed Davey's position in the House of Commons is a waste of space, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, Ed Davey has came out again saying this is Keir Starmer's moment to stand up for Britain and call on Trump to drop his ludicrous lawsuit against the BBC. The Prime Minister has spent months cozying up to Trump. If he can't stop him from attacking one of our most precious institutions, what is it all for? Ed Davey lives on Mars. I think Ed Davey doesn't live on the Earth. He's certainly wired somewhere. I think the plug socket's on the moon somewhere because his signal and his voltage isn't getting to him in time. Literally, Ed Davey doesn't understand the current situation. The BBC doctored and manipulated footage of Donald Trump to make him look like he was inciting violence. He is making out Donald Trump is just going after the BBC, just because I don't like the BBC. No, the BBC have tried to sort of fabricate stuff and interfere in an election, and Donald Trump has every single right to go and sue him. Now, obviously last night in that interview, he also stated that it's his obligation, and I absolutely do believe that it is his obligation to go and sue the BBC because it makes a point. It makes a point that it sends a message to all these sort of liberal, anti-Trump, or as Trump would say, fake news sites. It sends a clear warning message, say, if you fabricate your information, you will be liable and you will be sued. So it tries to take away this sort of left-wing bias to try and manipulate, fabricate stuff and interfere with elections. And the BBC needs to be used as that sort of scapegoat. Now, again, people on this side, Liz Truss, of course, has come out on Fox News and said that we are on Donald Trump's side, and I absolutely agree with that. Let's see what Liz Truss has said, and we're going to get into this debate with regard to this Judgment Day that Keir Starmer is going to be having.
There are lots of people in Britain who are cheering President Trump on and who want him to sue the BBC because they're a huge problem. They've lied, they've cheated, they've fiddled with footage, both in the case of President Trump, but also covering up what's happening in Britain, whether it's mass migration, whether it's our economic problems. They are always biased towards the left, and the British taxpayer has had to pay for all of this fake news. So there is a lot of excitement amongst Conservatives in Britain at the moment that President Trump is actually taking the BBC on.
Do you think an apology from the BBC is enough?
No, I don't, because they keep doing it again and again. They have painted a completely false picture of President Trump in Britain over a number of years. They've done the same thing about Conservatives in our country. And I believe the organisation needs to be defunded. And as well as suing the BBC, I think it would be fantastic if President Trump were to encourage stopping the British taxpayer funding what is fake news that is damaging Britain's reputation. I mean, the BBC used to be the paragon of journalism across the world. It was respected. It's now become a laughing stock, and it needs to be put out of its misery.
And the BBC has apologized. The chairman, Samir Shah, has sent a separately personal letter to the White House making it clear to President Trump that he and the corporation are sorry for the edit of the president's speech on 6th of January 2021, which featured in the program. The BBC has no plans to rebroadcast the documentary.
And it was a pretty appalling apology, to be honest with you. It was an appalling apology. But let's get this into this, where it relates to Keir Starmer. As you can see, that the debate is saying that they wouldn't be surprised if Keir Starmer is furious with the BBC for potentially putting strain on the relationship to the UK and the US. And they're saying that this couldn't be a worse decision. It's a sort of lose-lose situation now for the Prime Minister as he comes to this Judgment Day.
First, it looked as though Donald Trump was just going to demand an apology from the BBC, and he was just threatening to sue to scare them into making that apology that he wanted. It now looks very much as though he is totally serious about suing. And Mary and probably other UK watchers of both the BBC and GB News will probably be relatively sympathetic to the president. There are officials at the BBC who believe that what they did was wrong, but the statement from Samir Shah, the chair, apologising was quite sort of mealy-mouthed. There was an apology there, but he said that the BBC is not institutionally biased. Keir Starmer has actually said the same thing. He said that he doesn't believe that the BBC is institutionally biased. I wonder if the Prime Minister will come to regret saying that through his spokesman, because that report from Michael Prescott looking into allegations of BBC bias, that comes to the conclusion that the BBC is actually institutionally biased. Samir Shah has said that that report is wrong. Keir Starmer at the moment seems to be aligning himself with Samir Shah, but I wonder if he'll come to regret that. The Prime Minister has spent most of this year trying to cozy up to Donald Trump to try and get various deals over the line. And this will, I think, cause a rupture in relationships between the UK and the US. It has really, really angered Donald Trump. You can see his fury with the BBC in some of those clips in that world-exclusive interview with Bev Turner. And if Prime Minister Starmer is considering aligning himself with the BBC, well, that could cause a bit of friction.
Yeah, where does it leave politicians? Because it's certainly, I mean, the Lib Dems have been very vocal about it, Ed Davey particularly in PMQs. I mean, basically saying he wants the Prime Minister to intervene to make sure the BBC does not get sued. But if it was any other organisation, it would be. So is it sort of saying, I know he's saying it's because we all pay for the BBC, but is he effectively trying to give the BBC a free pass?
Well, and I think this is going to be a really, really difficult question for the Prime Minister. He is caught between a rock and a hard place here, because on the one hand, the BBC is an important institution. All politicians are clear on that. As you say there, the taxpayer, if Donald Trump were to sue, would probably bear the brunt of the cost. But on the other hand, the whole point of the BBC is that it is separate from the government. It is a public service broadcaster, but it isn't a state broadcaster. And if the Prime Minister was seen to intervene, was seen to sort of take the side of the BBC and give the BBC some sort of special treatment over other TV channels, well, that would really, really anger the President and might actually end up angering quite a lot of voters. The other big question, of course, is the renewal of the licence fee, which is on the table at the moment. The charter comes to an end in 2027, and at that point, a decision will have to be made about how the BBC is funded going forwards. Now, Nadine Dorries, the previous Conservative Culture Secretary, who's now defected to Reform, said when the last charter was renewed that she thought that should be the very last time that the BBC is funded in the way it is, i.e. through taxpayer money. So there is a big question about the future funding model of the BBC, and the fact that these huge allegations of bias and this extraordinary threat to sue from the President of the United States have all come at this time makes life very, very difficult, both for the BBC and actually for Keir Starmer, who's going to be really caught on this question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you think of the last time they met and Keir Starmer gave him the official King's sort of invitation for a second visit, it was, I mean, he was really sycophantic. You have to, I mean, it was creepy almost. I can't see how he'd handle the next interview with President Trump, or meeting with President Trump, because President Trump has been so critical now of practically everything going on in the UK.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I was astonished really at the difference. I was presenting when that state visit was happening between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer was speaking at that press conference, and actually Keir Starmer was, as you say, very, very sycophantic. At one point, he was sort of stroking Donald Trump's back. He picked up his papers for him when they were on the floor. And Donald Trump was pretty complimentary about the UK. Well, that seems to have totally changed. In that interview, we know that the president sort of might say one thing one day, another thing another day, and it seems as though his opinion on the United Kingdom has drastically changed. When Bev Turner asked the president in another bit of that interview, she said that Europe is in the doldrums, the UK is in the doldrums, and he absolutely agreed. He said, I have some fondness for the United Kingdom, my mother is Scottish, but, you know, essentially you're doing everything wrong, was what he was saying. And then he had a go at Sadiq Khan, obviously a close ally of Keir Starmer's. So I think that actually this really couldn't be worse for Keir Starmer. He must be so furious with the BBC, because I think this will put some serious strain on that very important relationship between the UK and the US.
Well, it's true, and he's going to have to make a decision here, and it's going to anger one side, if not. And I do think he should not get involved. I mean, I'm saying it from this point of view, reality. He should not get involved with the BBC, just allow Trump to do what he needs to do. And then the next stage will be defunding the BBC and turning them into a subscription service, and then not allowing them, of course, to take taxpayers' money to fund their sort of propaganda. That's the only right route. But as we know with Keir, he has a lot of pressure and often always does pander towards the left, and will likely, probably, rupture relationships with the president. Guys, do let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Peace.